It's time for Real Estate 101 with the Carrie Brown team from Realty Executives Preferred Advisors.
Good Saturday morning to you. This is Carrie Brown, broker owner of Realty Executives Preferred Advisors, and you're listening to Real Estate 101, and I have the infamous Cameron here with Skinner's Nursery. How are you, Cameron?
I am doing very well. I don't know about infamous.
Well, you've been around for a long time.
That just means I'm old.
Well, no, you've been on the air a long time. They haven't kicked you off, so that makes you infamous.
Either that or nobody's paying attention.
Now, word has it that you get a lot of call-ins. Do you, and online and all of that. So how long did it take you to build all that up?
Well, I inherited it. So
awesome.
this program that we're talking to, Garden Answers, started in 1967.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I believe it's the oldest running program on the station. Yeah, it started in 1967. It wasn't me. That was the year I was born. So, but Don started it back then. Don Repke, the gentleman who managed Skinner Garden Store back in those days, and he did it through the rest of the 60s, the 70s, and then in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, I started coming in and helping him as he was kind of getting ready to retire. And then actually a team of us kind of did it together in the early days. Several from the store, little by little. I took over more and more of it, and now
you're the star of the show.
Now I'm the face of the voice.
The face of the voice.
Got a face for radio, they tell me.
Oh, so my last show last week was about the Sugar Rescue Mission, so I thought let's get back to real estate. Obviously, I love doing those pieces because I love for the community to hear about all the great people that are doing more for the community. But when it comes to real estate, I know everybody always asks, especially whenever they're buying their first new house and say it's a new construction, and they just cannot wrap their mind around how am I going to landscape all of this. Mm-hmm. Does Skinner's Nursery do that?
Yeah. First of all, yes. So for folks not familiar with our operation, we're a retail garden store, which means we sell gardening supplies, and that is largely plants, trees, shrubs, perennials, annuals, vegetables, all that kind of stuff. But also the supplies, the edging and the mulch and the compost and the things that you need when you're planting or gardening of any type. But then the other real important part of all that is the information. And it doesn't do any good to have trees and shrubs and compost and edging if you don't understand how to use them. Where certain plants should go, how big they're going to get, what kind of exposure they like, what they don't like, what's going to fit good in this, that kind of thing. And so we have a team of folks that can provide good information as to what would be appropriate for this spot, what kind of composition might look attractive, if it's a little more elaborate, some overall design ideas. And we can go everything from kind of walk-in, simple sort of projects to more elaborate sit-down on a drafting table, basically, and work up landscape plans just like a architect would develop house plans, and provide then a blueprint for you to follow if it's something you want to do yourself and maybe piece together little by little or over time, or we also have crews that can help with installation if you want to get some more help there too.
And I know I've discussed it with several buyers that I've had in the past years, and sellers, because we have actually seen where they plant trees too close to the foundation. Can you go through real quick why there should be a gap between your house and where you plant a tree?
Yeah. So obviously things grow and they get bigger. And one of the easiest mistakes to make with anything, whether it's a little bitty perennial or a flower or a tree, is underestimating what it's going to be down the road. And that's real important to keep in mind. We try to help folks in that regard and try to get a better feel for what they've got, what they need, and try to steer them in the right direction. But I mean, ultimately, you've got to kind of be aware of what your situation is. Too close to the house, I mean, obviously, as the tree gets bigger, you're going to have branches hanging out over the roof line. It's not the end of the world, but there's a maintenance issue involved with that. And your husband, would be able to address that, being a tree person. Some proper pruning over time to maintain a healthy, structurally sound tree, so you don't have a highly problematic situation. Too close from a standpoint of the foundation and so forth. we get a lot of questions about that, and I don't know that with modern construction, concrete foundations, that there's really a huge issue with tree roots. Old stone foundations or old damaged foundations, you're going to have some problems with root infiltration, and roots don't cause the problem, but they make a problem worse over time. And even planting farther away probably isn't going to eliminate that, so you're still going to have an issue to deal with. And certainly just the overall appearance. I mean, if a tree gets too big and it's too close, it looks a little out of proportion, doesn't look right. It's intimidating when you turn around and try to sell that house. It's going to be a negative towards maybe that future home buyer, which is obviously going to hurt the value, I would think, and be maybe a sales problem. And that's your side of the court there, but I would think that's going to be problematic. Any of those kind of, I see people plant trees that are potentially going to get too big underneath power lines, areas where they don't have the room to grow. They're going to have somebody's problem someday. And honestly, I hear this all the time at the shop. Well, I won't be there long enough to have to worry about it. And frankly, it makes me kind of mad. Mm-hmm. I don't get mad, but I'm like, I get that. I mean, but, think about it. You're going to move someplace. And is that the attitude you want that homeowner to have
exactly
to the home that you're getting ready to buy? Mm-hmm. Or wouldn't it be better if we all kind of thought about it and made sure that what we're doing is going to be something that can sustain and last long term? And eventually maybe other families will be able to enjoy it as well. And then you're going to be moving into some place where somebody else had the same consideration.
Right. I've had foundations where, and you're right, the roots will infiltrate that foundation if it's already damaged, and saw roots literally coming into the basement, and substantial amounts of roots coming into the basement. So clearly it's made a problem, which in turn causes a big problem for resale. Number one, the tree's got to go. They've got to grind it all out. They've got to figure out how to get that out. And then they have to fix the foundation.
Right.
So it's one of those things that prevent taking that first step, putting it in an area where it should have been, also because that one was literally butted up against the house. I mean, the tree was growing into the siding.
Well, and that's probably not a tree that was planted, I bet. It was probably something that came up volunteer. Which, it happens all the time. You get stuff that pops up in your foundation plantings. And if that's the case, then that's a pretty obvious message to the next person that somebody's kind of neglected this place. And if that's been neglected, what else has been neglected?
Yeah. I would say in that particular situation, there was a fair amount of neglect. But at the same time, that tree was huge. I mean, it was clear that nothing had been done. There were no measures taken to try and eliminate that. So definitely be wary. Don't, ask the questions. How big of a root system will this oak tree get, while you're at the nursery, and kind of plan that out, just so that you don't have those problems later on.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, when you mentioned rubbing up against the roof, whenever we go through an appraisal period or an inspection period, that always gets flagged because it's going to rub that granulars off the shingles, which in turn causes a problem. So pruning is, something you need to be doing or having someone do. Not everybody should shimmy up a tree or, on a roof, and definitely don't sit on the limb that you're cutting, things like that. That people should know.
Well, you would hope people would know that. Well, and I try to make a regular point on our program to talk about regular tree care from a trained, professional, licensed arborist. Your husband, Troy, Brown's Tree Service, is that kind of an individual that knows what they're doing, and they're licensed and insured to do what they're doing, and get those people in through your lifetime in a house on a routine basis. And I'm sure everybody's got their own, but I'm guessing every 5 years or so, plus or minus, just to kind of tweak things. It's kind of like maintaining your car. If you don't want to have a huge repair down the road, just do the simple things along the way, and you can hopefully bypass those major things.
Yeah, and I don't think people really take into account how much a tree is worth as it ages. I mean, they actually go out and give estimates to say that's how much the tree was worth. So it is a value to your property. But also, whenever you're landscaping, there's more than just trees. So it's, how close should things be to your siding and, the mulch and things like that. it causes problems if you've got, wood on wood and things along those lines. And whenever you guys go out and you explain that, I'm assuming, which I'm sure you do, explain, listen, this is the reason why it is the way that it is, so that homeowner gets it.
Right. Well, like one of the things, since we were talking about new homes and maybe plant some new trees, one of the things that I will try to address on a regular basis with a new homeowner or a owner of a new home, newly built home, get trees planted as quickly as you can, because trees take a long time to reach a mature kind of size. And so the more time you have invested, the more you're going to get. So you don't put it off for down the road. You do it today. Worry about that first. But then you can, second, worry about foundation plantings. And I try to encourage people to think about it in that approach, because it never fails. Foundation soil settles a little bit. And I've talked with Charlie on Around Your Kansas Home about this routinely too. Drainage away from the house. You want good positive flow away from the house. And I've seen this, way too many times. And if it's done properly, backfilling around the foundation, maybe that settling doesn't occur. But I can guarantee you there's a lot of it that does. So that maybe is an indication of improper backfilling. But a year or two later, there's considerable settling up around the house. Well, now you've got a moisture problem that you need to address. And if you've put all your foundation plantings in already, then you're removing all those to bring in soil, to bring the grade up, because you just can't pile it up around the base, the stems of those plants without causing a lot of damage.
Absolutely. So when people come into the store, is it helpful if they come with like a drawing of what they're looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So like on the radio program, I'll tell people, come on out to the store with maybe some measurements, maybe some photographs or some video. I mean, that used to be a little more complicated, but now with smartphones, just do it. It's simple. And be prepared to have a conversation, because we're going to start throwing you back a whole lot of questions. I get a lot of email questions about things like this, or pest problems or disease problems. And I pretty routinely will fire back, okay, it's time for us to get on the phone and have a conversation, because there's a back and forth kind of dialogue that needs to take place. We're going to start asking questions. Okay, well, we can see this. What's your soil like? Well, I don't know. Well, have you ever dug a hole in the yard? No. Okay, then let's do this. Why don't you go home, dig a hole, and figure out what your soil's like. What's your soil like up here? What's your soil like over there? What are some of the things that you look at when you look out of the house? What are those views like? Because probably didn't think about taking pictures of that. So yeah, there'll be a back and forth dialogue, and just be prepared to talk. You might not have answers to all those questions, but it may raise the right questions that kind of send you then out seeking some more information.
So be sure and ask. I know whenever I go, I'm like, oh, that's pretty, and that's pretty, and that's pretty. And I mean, I'm married to a tree guy, but when it comes to flowers, I should be asking Cameron. And so I don't always read how wide it's going to get or how tall it's going to get. So there have been several times where something had to be dug up and moved because it was like, oh, so that gets about 5 feet tall. That shouldn't be there, just in the general landscape because it didn't fit in. Yeah.
Well, and that's going back to what I said. Well, we try to get people armed with the right information. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, gardening's a popular activity, but for an awful lot of us, we're busy. And gardening is a 4-letter word. It's work. Okay. And it may not be something we absolutely hate, but it's probably not something we look forward to doing, or we do it once in a while and then that's good enough. But if you're going to put the time and effort into it, we want to at least get you coming out of it going in the right direction. I mean, it takes just as much effort to plant the wrong plant as it does the right plant. It takes just as much effort to do it. In fact, sometimes more effort to do it wrong than to do it right. And boy, the results are a whole lot better if you do the right plant, do it the right way, and then there's a lot of satisfaction you get to enjoy down the road versus frustration and disappointment. And it cost money, and I still spent all that time, and I've got nothing but crud to look at.
And you also have to remember to water those things, which we'll discuss more of that after the break. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Southwest Topeka has a good neighbor. State Farm agent Jim Garrison, now at 29th and Urish. If your current insurance situation has you going around in circles, get off the roundabout and stop in and meet Jim and his wonderfully efficient staff. Let Jim Garrison give you a quote and make the Garrison comparison. He's confident that with State Farm's competitive rates, the right coverage, and his unmatched service, you'll want to make him your new insurance agent. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and Jim Garrison is there for you, northeast of the roundabout at 29th and Urish.
This is Stephen Parkin at Invista Credit Union. Purchasing a home is one of the most exciting and important decisions someone can make. Let me tell you why Invista is the best choice for financing your new home purchase. First, quick pre-approval process. Our fast decision-making gives you the power to act quickly and make an offer on your dream home. Second, local servicing. We service your mortgage in-house. You won't get a long-distance runaround, but a committed professional whose only job is to help you. Third, experienced team. We are dedicated to simplifying the process and educating you through the home buying process. Come by Invista. It's okay to dream. In fact, it's encouraged. We are your home buying partner. Give us a call at 785-228-0149.
Thanks for joining us again. This is Carrie Brown, broker owner of Realty Executives Preferred Advisors, and you're listening to Real Estate 101. And I am back with Cameron Rees, the infamous radio show of Garden Answers.
Garden Answers,
And I should know that off the top of my head. I don't know why I was thinking Ask for Garden Answers, but Garden Answers.
Garden Answers.
And he is the owner of Skinner's Nursery. So I was just telling him during the break that I got my first clematis to grow. I did find out that if you put it where it's supposed to go, which is in the shade, it likes it.
Yeah, so that plant will bloom better when the top gets a little more sunlight. But, I mean, think about it. A lot of vines naturally kind of grow up through the vegetation and eventually get up on top of the tree or the bush, and then they're in a lot of sun. So if you go out walking the timber, you kind of see that. And so a lot of vines benefit from kind of that cooler, shadier environment earlier on, and then, boom, they explode and take off, and they eventually find a little more sunlight or do a little bit better over time.
Yeah, it's really happy. It's growing up the side of the pool house and all the blooms, and I just look at it and I think, oh, that's great. Now, I will say I planted it. After that, my husband watered it, so I can't take full credit because he is the waterer.
And watering is kind of important.
It is. Yeah, that's where I fail. I have the vision. I go pick it. I love it. I plant it all where it's supposed to go. And then I get busy because this is our busy season.
Sure.
And I forget to water. So I have to give him credit. You know, he did water. And I did not. So.
Well, and that watering is so important. I was just driving by a commercial property the other day, and there were all kinds of trees that had been planted. It was kind of a charity organization, and they had done a big tree planting project a few years ago, and there are quite a few dead ones in there now. And it's disappointing when I see things like that there's a lot of enthusiasm around maybe getting a group of volunteers together, and we're going to plant some trees and make things a lot prettier. And unfortunately, then that's where it all ends. But the reality is that beautiful tree comes from getting a good tree, getting it planted, and then caring for it for the next several years until it's well enough established that it can make it through a miserable summer like we've been going through this year without a lot of extra care. Otherwise, a year, 2, 3 years down the road, you've got a tree that eventually, goes belly up and you're back to nothing. And so all that effort was wasted.
Okay, so we know we're going into fall. What should homeowners be doing to prep their yards for the season?
Okay. Well, every fall we talk about seeding, we talk about overseeding, we talk about fertilizing. That's just kind of the name of the game here in this part of the country. Most of our lawns are a turf grass species called tall fescue. There's a few different things that we can grow in our climate. The types of grasses that we grow have to do with how cold we get. So how winter hardy something is, how heat and drought tolerant it is to survive our summer. And there's just not very many that fall into that combined sort of requirement. Tall fescue on the cool grass side of things is pretty much the main one. So we've gone through, or still going through, summertime, and man, this summer has been brutal on everything. And I got a feeling we're going to see a lot of lawns with a lot of dead space in them, or drastically thinned down due to the summer heat and the dry conditions we've had since winter. We've had just enough rain in a lot of areas to kind of keep some stuff alive, but not enough to really help it thrive. And I don't know. I've been watching some turf that went down pretty quickly, and I got a feeling that it's not going to come back. It's not dormant. It's just dead. We normally are going to think about mid-August, about mid-October is our seeding season. So we're basically into our seeding season. We're going to need to do some fertilizing, some overseeding. Every yard's going to be a little different. Some yards overseeding may be all that's needed. Some yards it might just be a complete renovation, and you might have to tear it up and just start all over again. Just come by Skinner's and we'll talk to you about what you need. We'll help you calculate the right amount of grass seed. We'll get you fixed up with the new lawn starter so that you've got the right fertilizer to pair with it, and kind of explain the steps you need to go through.
Are there particular types of grasses that grow better in our area?
Yeah, definitely. And that goes back to what I was saying. So tall fescue is a cool season grass, and that's what most of us are going to plant. It stays green through the cool times of the year. So about this time of the year, you usually see it starting to come out of dormancy as the night temperatures get a little cooler. We get some rainfall, and it'll stay pretty green up until the dead of winter. And, of course, it goes a little bit dormant for the winter, and then it greens back up pretty quickly in the spring, and usually stays pretty green up to about, early summer. And then there's a few months in there where it'll tend to shut down, go dormant through the hot, dry period. Your warm season grasses do basically just the opposite. They like that summer period. They don't like the cool weather. So things like zoysia or Bermuda grass that folks might have, they're starting to kind of wind down right now. And by mid-September, we'll start to maybe see them noticeably starting to lose their green color. And they'll be dormant by the end of the fall season, and brown through the winter, and brown through early spring, and greening up maybe towards late April, early May.
Are there types of grasses that just people have tried in the area that just flat don't work?
Well, yeah. So that you can certainly try some other things on the cool season side of grasses. Bluegrass is one that people might be familiar with. Rye is another. And aesthetically speaking, they're both probably more attractive than our tall fescue in that they can tolerate being mowed shorter, and they're a little thinner bladed, so they're just a beautiful, nice, soft carpet in climates where they do well. You get up into Nebraska, and that's a fairly common turfgrass species, and it's not that difficult to grow halfway decent bluegrass. We're just far enough south that with the heat, the humidity, the heat stresses it, the humidity increases disease problems, and you really struggle with really good bluegrass unless you just are really, really lucky, or you are on a heavy fungicide program. So golf courses maybe, athletic fields probably utilize some, but they've probably also got a fungicide budget that gets pretty expensive. So if you don't want to be doing that, tall fescue is just kind of the way to go. On the warm season grass side, other than the zoysia and Bermuda, I don't know that there's too much that people can grow that will survive our winters, with the exception, I guess I should say, buffalo grass, which is one of our native prairie grasses, and starting to gradually become a little more popular as a turf grass alternative. It's a really short-growing native prairie grass. It doesn't take very much mowing to keep it looking pretty nice. It's not, not dark green. It's not super lush like some of our other turf grass species are, but it's certainly a viable alternative for folks who want a lower maintenance yard.
And so you're thinking about selling. What would be your tips for getting their yards ready for getting their house on the market?
Yeah, well, if nothing else, keep it well mowed, and take advantage through the fall season to fertilize. We're coming up on the most important fertilization that any yard will have the entire year. If you've got a cool season lawn, which the overwhelming majority of us do, you want the bulk of that fertilizer going on that lawn in the fall. And the most important one is this kind of late summer, early fall application. That turf grass has gone through the worst conditions of the year. It's coming out of dormancy here pretty soon, and it's going to try to do whatever it can, and whatever it can to repair, to fill back in, to thicken up, and get ready for the next season. Fertilizer will help stimulate some growth and help with that reparative process. So, yeah, this upcoming stretch, we'll be putting down that Fertile Lawn Food Plus Iron, which is that bright orange bag, and that is the most critical fertilizer application of the entire season. Get the lawn looking decent, mow it properly, and we talk about mowing all the time without going into a lot of detail. Mow as tall as you can. Try to mow it so that you don't have to take off too much at once. There's this 1/3 rule that we preach. You try to never remove more than 1/3 of the total blade height per cutting. So if you keep your mower set pretty high, 3.5 inches, 4 inches, whatever, and mow it before it gets much taller than whatever that works out to, 5 to 6 inches tall, you'll be okay. That helps eliminate some of the stress on that. And it'll keep it greener and keep it fuller and cut down some weed growth too.
How will they get a hold of you if they come out to Skinner's website,
Sure.
all of that?
Lots of ways. Well, okay, so first of all, obviously they can tune in on Saturday mornings and they can catch my program. It's called Garden Answers. And then Charlie and
Me?
Yeah, I mean, who all we have on now?
It is you, Charlie, me, and then Tara.
And then Tara comes on after you?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a 3-hour lineup there, some great programming, good local programming. But then out at Skinner Garden Store, you can call us direct. It's 233-9657. That's here in area code 785. You can go to our website. There's contact information there, skinnergardenstore.com. You can email us at info@skinnergardenstore.com. Find us on Facebook. All kinds of ways.
Hunt you down.
Hunt us down. We'll try to help.
And you can find us at preferredadvisorsteam.com. You can check out our houses. All you have to just click is our homes, and it'll show you ones that we have listed. Real quick, since we're talking about yards, I really love the yard at 5729 Southwest 37th Terrace. This home is $675,000, 6-bedroom, 5-bath, 7,474 square feet. And I mean, you're going into the house with equity if you buy it at $675,000. They have it's a tree-lined backyard, very plush, very green. Landscaping is beautiful, and there's an elevator in the house. Tons of cabinetry, custom. It's beautiful. There's a place in there for everyone. So be sure and check that out. And also check out 5500 Northwest Jennings Road. It's a 6-bedroom, 5-bath, 4,598 square feet, priced at $422,900. And this has a massive shop. It also has an apartment in the shop. So if you're a contractor, if you like cars, if you have a kid that's wanting to stay home, or you just want an extra income, this would be a great place. It also has a stocked pond. We also have one at 5066 Comanche Lane in McLouth, Kansas. It has the view of the lake there, so be sure and check that out. And also check out 4328 Southeast Chisholm Road. It's priced at $179,000, 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,036 square feet. That yard is very, very well maintained, very well landscaped. The front deck is just beautiful. You've just got to go see it. And then last one, 6-bedroom, 5-bath, 6,806 square feet, priced at $599,900. Has a shop that anybody would love. I mean, it's great. The house is huge. Open kitchen. You have to just see the pantry alone. You can walk into the pantry, and there is actually room for a side-by-side fridge in the pantry. And it's hidden. You wouldn't even know it was there until you walked in. So be sure and check that out. PreferredAdvisorsTeam.com. Be sure and give us a call at 785-213-5188. And don't forget, we donate 5% of our commissions back to a charity of your choice. So be sure and give us a call, 785-213-5188.
Thank you for listening to Real Estate 101 with the Carrie Brown team from Realty Executives Preferred Advisors.